there are potential obstacles to our doing this, and I just want to name them. There are 4. The first, would we be able to use this information for the benefits of patients? By which I mean, would we have the legal right to be able to sequence someone's whole genome and give them back all that information? Or would we be faced with a thicket of patents, patent protection, that would prevent us from doing that large-scale analysis and handing it back to patients? And here I am just smiling, because 2 weeks ago, the United States Supreme Court decided in a unanimous decision that human genes cannot be patented. And we'll even, Aspen is just amazing, you'll have the chance later to thank Justice Kagan as one of the 9 there for that. That's number 1. Number 2, though, the technical ability to combine all of this information, to share information. You might think that should be pretty easy. Think about your electronic health records, if you have electronic health records. They're all incompatible with each other. Even hospitals within the same network can't exchange data often, because people have these balkanized legacy systems of electronic health records that don't speak to each other. Can we manage to get the world to come together? And it's got to happen in the next 2 or 3 years, so we don't go off in a Tower of Babel of different solutions, but come together around the ability to speak that same language. And here I'm delighted that a number of people, including some of my colleagues at the Broad, brought together 70 organizations around the world in something called a Global Alliance. It was announced just in the beginning of June, where all these organizations have agreed to work together to have common standards and ability to exchange data in one uniform way. And these include the National Cancer Institute, National Institutes of Health in the United States, major hospitals, charities in England, in Canada, in Asia, and it's a remarkable thing. It hasn't happened, but everyone's agreed on paper they're going to do this. Number 3, we're going to need a patient movement, because in the end, every piece of this data belongs to an individual, and it should only be shared with that individual's consent, with their active desire to share. We need a patient movement. I call this thing Count Me In. That's my name for it, because I imagine that when a cancer patient or a mom with a child with some serious genetic disorder at birth comes in, they're given the right to say, I'd like to share the data. Check the Count Me In box. And a friend of a cancer patient says, or some other patient with some other disease, did you check the Count Me In box? Do you want to share? And people are welcome not to. They're welcome not to. But my experience has been most people want to be able to share this, want something good to come of whatever their medical experience is. Of their worst experiences, it makes meaning from it. And I think if we had a kind of patient count me in movement, many people would stand up and say, count me in. And then we have to worry about scientific funding. And I'm sorry to even think about this, but just at the time that we are seeing the payoff for the Human Genome Project and this amazing increase in technology, we're also seeing cutting of biomedical funding. I can't tell you what the effect has been, I can't tell you how serious the effect has been of sequestering 5% of the NIH budget. What it has meant is the scientific community is now getting very cautious about taking on ambitious new projects because they've got to worry about a greatly diminished budget. In fact, in real inflation-adjusted terms, the NIH budget has fallen by 25% over the past decade, while the opportunities have gone up just spectacularly. And so many of us in the scientific community are worried about, is this the right kind of investing we should do? You might say this is woolly-headed scientific thinking investment. The Battelle Institute did a study of what had been the return on investment on the Human Genome Project. And their current calculation in 2 reports they issued was it's returned about $965 billion, just under $1 trillion in economic impact of having this information. So from a purely hard-headed business point of view as a country, we ought to be investing in such things. And I think we will even have the opportunity, thanks again to Aspen, to be able to talk to Eric Cantor about such things. And I got to say, Eric Cantor is a big supporter of biomedical research. I know he believes in the power of all this, and I hope we can figure out how to make sure we support these things. And we'll have to do the same thing. I mean, just think about the signal it sends to our young people right now, whether we are or are not investing to take advantage of these opportunities. Of course, it's not all just the government. Philanthropy has played an enormous role in all of this, because it's only philanthropy that can really take the really bold projects that don't have to go to a peer-reviewed study section for approval and vetting, but philanthropists who can say, I'll bet on it, I'll take a risk.